So in my last video, I had the opportunity to talk to you guys about working specific muscle group day in and day out for years and years, and what would happen to these muscles if you ran into an incident or if you worked these muscle groups for that long and then you tried to make any sudden movements. And we discussed the Golgi tendon organ and how it is affected by this uneven distribution of force over time. I told you guys I would dive in deeper into the Golgi tendon organ, and I will also discuss reciprocal activation. Let's go back to the scenario where I was talking about you're in the gym and you're curling, you picking up a dumbbell and you're curling your bicep, right? I drew a diagram up here to explain in further detail, but once we go strictly to the tendon of that bicep and we open up that tendon and kind of zoom into that tendon, we can now look at the Golgi tendon organ. If we open up this tendon and look inside the tendon, we have the green here, which are collagen fibers wrapped around these little red looking balls. The red looking balls is the Golgi tendon organs. The Golgi tendon organs consist of mechanoreceptors, which are proprioceptors, and these receptors detect positioning of muscles. So why is that important? We need to know the position of our muscle, because if we overcontract our bicep or if we overextend our bicep, something needs to communicate to our brain that we're taking it too far. So our proprioceptors inside of our Golgi tendon organ communicate through sensory neurons in green here, which are type 2B sensory neurons, and they communicate to our central nervous system and our brain. If we're in the gym and we decide to pick up a weight that's way too heavy for us, right? And we start to lift it and we're contracting and we start to overload that tendon, our Golgi tendon organ will communicate with those proprioceptors to the CNS through our type 2B neurons, and our CNS and our brain will communicate back using alpha motor neurons, which are also sensory neurons, back to that same muscle to relax a little bit because we have overexerted or overcontracted that muscle. So one thing I didn't communicate is inside our CNS, up here in our spinal cord, we have interneurons that communicate excitatory action potentials, which causes contraction, or we have interneurons that communicate inhibitory action potentials that communicate relaxation of that muscle. Reciprocal activation is a process where if we do overcontract this muscle, we have interneurons that also communicate to the antagonist muscle, which are our triceps. Remember, agonist muscle is our bicep, antagonist is our triceps. We have interneurons that communicate to our tricep that we need to contract a little bit to fight this motion of us overcontracting our bicep, because we don't want to rip our bicep straight off the bone. So we need some type of mechanism that helps fight back. Reciprocal activation is this process of fighting back. Our body has mechanisms of communicating that you don't have to rip this muscle straight off the bone. Like, you want to be Phil Heath so bad and curl 150s, but it's just not necessary. In relation to veterinary medicine, you may run into this mechanism when it comes to your larger animals or your giant breeds of dog. Your smaller dogs experience this, but it's just not as common. Give me a second. I'm gonna see if I can find something that'll help me explain what issues you may run into with these large breeds. Okay, so I found me a large breed dog. In the case of larger breed dogs, you will have issues with conformation and weight bearing on their hind limbs, where they are more common to tear a ligament in their hind limb, specifically in their stifle joint. Over time, we have developed or bred conformations that cause issues in the stifle joints of these larger breed dogs, which leads to structural dysfunction in that joint. When your dog is running or playing outside, the weight from that dog and the force that's put into the ground creates uneven distribution between the agonist and antagonist muscles, which causes joint issues and possibly tearing of a ligament or a muscle. Okay, let me put the dog back. All right, I'm back. It's extremely important to know the functionality of this system because you're going to run into it at some point. This is an important concept that you will have to learn in vet school. I didn't dive real deep into the functionality of this system, but you will go into great detail in your physiology courses. Understand how this works. DuckMed, I'm trying to help.
3, hit it!